probably the most robust and interesting sort of autonomous vehicle company that you may not have ever heard of. My name is Nathan Cheney, and today we're going to talk a little about autonomous vehicles with co-founder and CEO of NuPort Robotics, Raghavinder. So, Raghavinder, could you take a moment to tell us a little bit more about your past and kind of how you got to this point of founding NuPort Robotics?
Hi, Nathan. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'll just start giving you a quick introduction on myself. So, I have around a little more than 16 years of experience in the autonomous driving, machine learning, autonomous autonomous vehicles, robotics space. In the past, I have worked at deploying mobile robots in different cities in Canada. Worked on selling defense robots to the Indian government, Indian Army, and different government and state organizations. I've also worked on robot arms with Open Robotics, also worked in mobile phone technologies. And other than that, for the last almost little 5 years, I've been running Newport Robotics, working in the domain of autonomous robotics, autonomous driving for trucks. And I often like to describe that I was earlier working on mobile robots that had a payload of 15 kgs, and now that's expanded to 15,000 kgs. So yeah, I'm Ragwinder, and I also usually say I'm an engineer by choice, but an entrepreneur by heart. So I live with that mantra, and then that's a little bit about me.
What do you want people to know about Newport?
So Newport till date has been very much been under the radar as opposed to a lot of other companies. What we've been doing at Newport is building a realistic solution towards autonomous trucking, meaning that we want to give our customers immediate value, and we are doing that by retrofitting their existing fleet of trucks. So that is also one of our differentiating factors when you compare us with other companies, that we retrofit your existing fleet of trucks and make them autonomous. So yeah, that's what we do at Newport, and we work with pretty much any company that owns or operates trucks. This could be trucking companies, retailers, manufacturers, ports. And 2024 has been very much about solidifying certain relationships with key transportation stakeholders. And 2025 is all about commercialization and expanding into Canada. I mean, deepening our operations in Canada and expanding to the US.
Right, right. So you mentioned a while ago that you've been working on Newport for about 5 years now. What have you guys, can you kind of go back in time a little bit further and kind of just talk a little about what you've been up to for these past 5 years?
Yeah, so we for the last 5 years, what we've done is like we're a small team. We've been very extremely capital efficient when it comes to like use of our money for either hiring engineers, branding, marketing. We haven't spent a lot on marketing and branding till date. That's one of the reasons you haven't heard about us much. But we've spent a lot of our resources on developing the technology and coming up with a solution that makes sense for customers. So what I mean by that is we have understood the industry at a very intimate level, uh, which uh, which has given us a significant edge when we speak with our customers, and our solutions are very much applicable to the customers that we work with, and they are also working with us because they understand our approach towards realistic deployment of autonomous trucks, whether it's with in distribution centers or private roads or on route public roads. So it really depends on customer to customer. We tailor our technology to work effectively on their specific use cases.
Right. So have got a really broad set of use cases that you can address. So I've seen in some of your literature this concept of no new trucks. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that means at Newport?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, that we work always keeping customer in mind first. So we're not going to a customer and telling them, hey, that we will are selling you an autonomous truck. Going to them and telling them that you don't need to buy any new trucks. We work with your existing fleet, and we are converting that fleet into autonomous driving trucks. What that does for us is, number one, we don't need to invest in the asset of buying a new truck. That has forced us to build a realistic solution towards autonomous driving. So, from a customer standpoint, they don't buy new trucks, they work with their existing assets, deploy our technology, and get immediate value, which works best for us and them.
It makes a lot of sense. I think I heard a statistic in the past that
Mhm.
only about 3% of the fleet of trucks out on the road is sold every year. And so at that rate, it would take 30 something years to actually, replenish and replace all of the fleet of trucks that are out in the roads today with autonomous trucks. And so I've always kind of had this idea that retrofitting would be a necessary way to expand autonomous driving capabilities into the fleet of millions of trucks that are out there today because we can't possibly build enough new ones fast enough. Is that kind of part of your business model?
Exactly, like we believe in having the to spend less capital and building a solution that is scalable much quicker. So that has been the motivation all along, that we don't want to go to a customer and tell them, hey, you have a customer might have a fleet of, let's say, anywhere from 10 trucks to 1,000 trucks. I'm not going to go to a customer that has, let's say, 10 trucks and he's already strapped for cash and tell him that, hey, you need to buy 10 new trucks and replace your existing fleet. Or let's say if you compare with somebody who has 500 trucks, they don't need to buy 500 new trucks. I go to them, work with their existing 500 trucks, and they start seeing value immediately. So that's been always our uh, like mantra of efficient use of capital and deploying autonomous driving in a realistic and scalable manner.
So you touched a little bit on your plans for 2025 earlier, but could you elaborate a little bit more on what you've got planned for this year?
Yeah, so for this year, like we'll be expanding into the US with certain customers. We're already in discussions with a few customers, expanding more to the southern part of the US, like the sunny states, the obvious one being Texas. And we are also in discussions with a few other states and a few other customers where we'll be expanding our operations into. And also at the same time, on the Canadian side of things, we have a very good set of customers already that have piloted the technology over the last few years, and we're right now in the process of entering into commercial contracts with them and moving towards a point of proving out our business model and making that more repeatable on the Canadian side, and on the US side, establishing our foothold in the US and then expanding our operations with key strategic customers.
How about from the perspective of what type of platforms you're operating on? Day cabs, sleeper cabs, shunt truck. Like, is there anywhere that you have spent most of your time on in the past, and that you plan? What do you plan to do in the future as far as the platforms?
So from a platform standpoint, we have primarily deployed our technology on day cabs, but I do like to say that we are agnostic to the truck's make and model. So our technology is compatible with whether it's day cabs, sleepers, or shunt trucks. So we do have that capability in our autonomous driving systems that allow us to deploy on multiple diverse set of platforms. So we're not like tied to any one specific OEM. Technology can work across multiple manufacturers, ranging all the way from the big names. So we've worked with most of the trucks of different makes and models.
So many people familiar with the industry and the challenges that need to be overcome with autonomous driving vehicles. Many know that weather can be an issue. Can you talk a little about what you're doing to mitigate the issues and the challenges around weather?
Yes, so like I'm a Canadian, and so most of our people in the company are also Canadian. So we get to experience one of the benefits of being in Toronto or starting the company in Toronto was that we get to experience all weather conditions: extreme snow, rain, sunny conditions, obviously day and night. But in addition to Toronto, we've also deployed our technology in severe snowy conditions in northern Canadian cities. We've deployed in one of the rainiest cities in Canada. We've also deployed, obviously, in sunny cities. And we also recently had a blog post on creating or completing creation of an all weatherproof enclosure for sensors like cameras, lidars, and radars that can work in all weather conditions. So that has been extremely helpful for us, and that has also been seen as a gap in the industry where without an all weatherproof enclosure, your cameras are not going to see anything. Like just last weekend, there were two snowstorms in Toronto. So, I mean, you can very well imagine my car was entirely like thick layer of snow. I was just took me some time to remove the snow. So if you think about that, if a truck is obviously if the our weatherproofing enclosure cannot remove 30, 25, 15 centimeters of snow, but it can definitely perform when there's a heavy snowfall happening. And one thing is that we want our cameras will be able to see what's happening in the front as good as a human would. So yeah, we've got good experience in diverse set of weather conditions.
Got it. All right. So a feature or benefit that I think a lot of users and buyers may be looking for is how is the sustainability or environmental efforts of a company addressed through technology like what Newport Robotics has?
Yes, so right now we've primarily deployed our autonomous driving capability on diesel trucks, but at the same time realizing the importance of alternate fuel cell vehicles like zero emission trucks such as electric trucks, hydrogen trucks, or hybrid hydrogen trucks. We recently undertook a project with which was being led by Innovate BC, and there are multiple stakeholders, including one of the largest ports, a major trucking company, and there's a public press release also on this, where we are working on benchmarking zero emission vehicles, like specifically Class 8 trucks. And these trucks are running on a diverse set of routes from short haul to long haul, all the way from, I would say, 5 kilometers to 200 kilometers, where these trucks are being tested on multiple routes. And we are providing analysis with respect to which trucks operate optimally for what specific use cases. So we are doing this currently to benchmark the zero emission vehicles and suggesting recommendations to trucking companies what might be the best option for them given their specific use cases. So this allows us to further reduce our dependency on fuel and also further um, inspire or motivate trucking companies to move towards alternate fuel cells, alternate fuel vehicles. So we are doing this project in British Columbia.
Got it. Got it. Could you touch a little bit on what the customer journey is like once someone hears about Newport Robotics? What's the process like from that first time that they hear, inquire about learning more, and deploying on a pilot or commercialization?
Yeah, so for us, it's really easy. Like we are ready to deploy. If a customer reaches out to us, we can deploy with them like pretty much right away. That is what we can do. But obviously, given the nature of customers that we work with, there's obviously a bunch of phases involved. We have an introductory meeting with them. We have proposal discussions. Then we move to a contracting phase. There's a legal back and forth, and then finally we sign a contract and we're ready to roll. So it's a very simple process for us to onboard a new customer. The time depends on how quickly the customer could move. For us, I mean, Newport being a startup, we are very agile and we're a small team. So, I mean, we've crunched like really long proposals within a couple of days. Like I'm talking 80-page proposals in 2 days. So we've done that in the past, and we've won some good awards as well. Like we've won some grants. So the customer journey is very straightforward. We show them the technology, they pilot with us, and then we subsequently commercialize with the customers.
Got it. How about on, let's talk for a moment about the people side of the business. You elaborated a while ago about you've got a team largely concentrated in Canada. Can you talk a little bit about the hiring process for building the company from a people perspective?
Yes, so I've been very cognizant of the type of people that I want to bring into the company. I usually always take the first meeting, so you probably may or may not have heard that CEO is taking the first call, but I always like to vet the person. I have a good sense of the person, so I always get a good sense whether they are going to be thriving in a company's culture as ours. So we have a very diverse set of people. So like we have people in the transportation sector, we have people in the from operations, finance, HR, in addition to obviously autonomous driving, robotics, machine learning, computer vision. So we've got like some of the world's leading experts in the AI field, who've like one like had multiple patents in the past, published a ton of research in the autonomous driving industry from a technical, from a on the technical side, both on the scientific and the engineering side of things. Newport is engineering first company. We want to build solutions that work in the real world. So that is something that I always evaluate whenever I bring on a technical person, whether their eyes light up when they hear autonomous trucks or autonomous robots in general. So that's the first thing I see in an engineer's during the hiring process, and that's very evident for some people. On the business side of things, we also did a recent corporate restructuring. So we got some really senior people who've got like decades of 40 plus years of experience in the transportation side. We've got people on the finance side that have extensive amount of experience of making corporate deals, selling companies, acquisitions, raising funds. So we have a very strong set of people, and this is just very recent that we got some senior management into the company to move more towards a commercialization phase as opposed to a building phase. So yeah, you'll hear a lot more about the type of people that we have on board in the next few months. But 2025 is all about commercialization.
Excellent.
Yep.
So you've talked a little bit about the different kinds of pilots and projects that you've worked with. Could you say a little bit more about what kind of customers and clients you're working with?
Yeah, sure. I can give you a rough description. Unfortunately, I won't be able to name some customers, but it's public that we have been working with Canadian Tire. In addition to that, we are also working with Innovate BC on a zero emissions project. In addition to that, we work with retailers, trucking companies, logistics companies, rail terminals, ports. So we work with a wide, diverse set of transportation companies. So yeah, and you'll hear a lot more about the exact names sometime later this year.
Excellent. The technology for autonomous vehicles has been in popular culture and in the media and the news and in business for some years now.
Mhm.
What do you see as the roadmap for the technology over the next 5 or 10 years?
So from my perspective, we are still early in the sense that yes, there have been public deployments of like trucks with a safety driver and without safety drivers, both on private and public roads. But in my mind, we are still away from deploying these trucks on public roads in a driverless and a scalable fashion. Like getting one truck out in a driverless fashion with a remote monitor, that's fine. But I'm talking about 200 trucks, 500 trucks running day in, day out on a specific route. And I'm talking about this is from one company. And then this needs to be scaling to 10,000 trucks running on public roads. So I would say we are still a little further out from doing this in a driverless fashion. What's more realistic to me is deploying technology in a private site where you don't have the same amount of risks that you would see on public road autonomy. So that's more realistic in the next few years. But we are still at least a couple of years away from driverless trucks on public roads. We're not there yet from a scalable fashion, but we're not far. But it's going to take some time for public road autonomy.
Makes sense. So before we wrap up the podcast today, I like to give every guest an opportunity to make sure that the message got across to those listening. Is there anything, any last words or anything else you have that we didn't talk about today that you'd like to mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of things, but I would say if somebody who's listening to this podcast is a customer, we'd love to work with you. I'm very approachable on LinkedIn or via email. It's just my first name dot last name at newport.ai. If you're an investor who wants to invest or collaborate, please feel free to reach out to me. We are more than happy to work with the right set of investors. If you're somebody who would like to join our team, absolutely reach out to me directly. And we would love to have strong technical people and strong people who have extensive set of business experience on the transportation side of things. So we are always looking forward to adding new people to our Newport family. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you.